Welcome. This is the PixelBlips Podcast for June 31st, or is it July 1st? July 1st. It's the new month.
Yay.
Happy early Canada Day and happy early late Canada Day. Happy Canada Day, happy 4th of July, happy Independence Day to everyone in North America, north of the Rio Grande.
And south of Canada.
No, Canada's Independence Day is around this time of year.
That's true.
Canada Day. Our friends to the north, the Canucks. Yeah. So anyway, right. Canada, Toronto, video games.
Okay.
This is the PixelBlips Podcast. Dave, what are you playing this week?
Well, I finished Space Marine. I was a little disappointed with the final boss fight.
I was too.
It's.
But we were disappointed for different reasons. So why were you disappointed?
Well, I mean, so it starts out, it's wave after wave of the Chaos Marines. Mm-hmm. And then...
Spoilers, by the way.
For a 2-year-old game.
Well, yeah, but, I mean, people might have just gotten it off PSN+. They just went on sale on
Steam, too.
Yeah,
like the
so
whole
spoilers. No story spoilers, really, but...
But yeah, it's just...
Although Chaos Marines is a story spoiler, so sorry.
Yeah. And then you jump on the big boss guy and knock him off this platform, and it's a QuickTime event.
Yes.
The whole thing is a QuickTime event.
Well, not the whole thing. I mean, it falls into that problem that first-person shooters have had for a long time of how do you make a boss battle? Do you make it like in Quake, where it was the giant thing, or Half-Life 1, where it was the giant floating alien baby head? Spoiler for Half-Life 1. Well, just in case. Or is it just like, Call of Duty or Black, where it's just wave after wave of guys?
And then eventually you survive and you win.
Yeah. And I think this one kind of straddles that line of there was an ultimate bad guy, mm-hmm. and then there was a wave after wave of guys. I didn't like the wave after wave of guys because I don't like that type of ending, just because with checkpoints, it feels less like you're winning the game than just kind of being shuffled through it.
Yeah.
That's always been my problem with the Call of Duty and Halo series, is at a certain point I realized that I can just run through the room and get to the next checkpoint, and even if I die,
Yeah, you'll just respawn and then nothing will be on your tail.
Yeah, so, I mean, I know that's not the purpose of those games, and I know they're really good games, but when I get bored and frustrated, that is what I do.
Yeah.
But I like the QuickTime event at the end of it.
I mean, it was cool. It was cool looking.
Yeah, it was fun.
It took me, I almost died twice because I couldn't figure out, there was a jump off the guy when he tries to hit you button, but...
The problem with that last level is that there's a skybox around the entire level, and it's really apparent when you're falling mm-hmm. in that last part, is that the image they've used for the skybox maybe is not as high a resolution
as they had hoped,
as you would want it to be.
Yeah.
Especially, there's even an in-game cutscene coming into that last level where I was waiting for that skybox to load up because it just looked so bad. Mm-hmm. But I liked the QuickTime event. I didn't like how the story ended, mainly because there's a setup for a sequel that probably won't happen.
Yeah, I mean, I would like a sequel.
THQ doubling down on core mm-hmm. titles, we might get that.
Yeah, and
it was. Cool. I believe it was successful-ish for them.
Well, and I thought it was kind of interesting. I was looking around on the PSN yesterday mm-hmm. when I was looking for some DLC, and there's a DLC pack for it that came out that has, I guess, alternate costumes and a co-op mode and stuff like that for $30.
Yeah.
So they just gave the game away so you can buy the DLC that came out that week.
Yeah. But at the same time, we talked about it a couple weeks ago when we first discussed when I played and beat Space Marine, I don't feel the need to play multiplayer with that.
No, and the multiplayer is what it is. It's like an arena thing. You're teamed up with other random people. So, I mean, it's not bad. It has some interesting mechanics where you can steal the load out of the guy that killed you. Mm-hmm. So if some guy with jump packs and the laser sword comes by and kills you, you could steal that and then jump pack around for a little while, which is kind of cool.
Yeah.
And seeing how those were the most fun parts of the game for me was jump pack and big hammer. So.
That last level is awesome, isn't it?
Yeah.
The jump pack and the big hammer.
Platform.
Yeah, that was a good one. I was like, this is fun.
Let's make a whole game of this.
I like games that end that way, like Chronicles of Riddick. Spoiler for Chronicles of Riddick, and the other Chronicles of Riddick, the entire game in Chronicles of Riddick, you're kind of hunted by these giant mechanized suit things that when you see them, mm-hmm. since it's kind of a sneaking game, when you see them, you immediately run away. Well, the last part of the game, you're in one of those
giant
trudging
suit things.
around.
Yeah.
Same thing with Black Ops 2 is you kind of, for the first part of that last level in Black Ops 2, you're in one of those heat locker suits, spoilers for Black Ops 2, heat locker suits doing a mission. And that's kind of fun. I like that because they kind of build the tension, releases it before that final boss battle, and then that final boss battle is hard. But once again, like I said, Warhammer 40K, I like how the gameplay ends. I don't really like how the story ends.
Yeah.
Because it sets it up. It's so obvious. It's so obvious to set up for the next game.
That may or may not be what may or may not have been in development.
Yeah. I mean, it might just be like, oh well, whatever. Like it didn't feel like that story was over.
No. And I
there's
kind
ways
of don't
to
want
do
it to
that.
be over.
Yeah, there's ways to do that. Like Uncharted 2 ended. You felt like that story was over, and it didn't need to go any further. But it still set up his and Alina's relationship. You felt like it could go further. Like the end of Last Crusade. You felt like Indiana Jones' The Last Crusade ends, they ride off into the sunset. You feel like that is over, but Indiana Jones is still out in the world. He's still going to do his thing.
Yeah.
And, however many years later, we're going to get a subpar sequel with aliens. That's not as bad as everyone says it is. But
Not
that's
as good
Andy's
as
opinion.
some people thought it was, though.
Yeah, that's Andy's opinion. This isn't a movie podcast, so. Anything else you're playing this weekend?
I got, like I said, I was looking for some DLC, and I bought one of the two table packs that came out for Pinball Arcade. It was the one that had Bride of Pinbot and Medieval Madness, which is one of
Which are two of the best pinball tables ever made.
Yeah. And it was the best $5 I ever spent, except it took me 3 hours to figure out how to make it work.
Yeah, we will be talking about that a little bit later. Today's main topics are going to be, we'll get into the first one right after I do what I was playing, because what I was playing leads into that one. The other topic is going to be the PS3 kind of feels like the Xbox, the original Xbox, and the fact that Sony is putting the feelers out for how to do a network correctly.
Yeah.
They had a bunch of good ideas on paper, and they've kind of figured out through the life of the PS3 what's gone wrong. And we'll talk about those things that's gone wrong, because this week it happened to both of us where the PSN, for whatever reason, just decided not to work how we thought it should, and how its developers probably would like it to.
Yeah.
So what I was playing, this leads into our first thing, is I've been splitting my time between PlayStation 1 Classic Tomba, which I never got when it first came out, and it's super fun. It is a side-scroller-ish game by the producer of the original Mega Man series, Fujiwara, who is a freaking genius. You play a Neanderthal caveman type character who fights pigs. And it is a non-linear
Was there an
platform
arcade version
game.
of that? Because I want to say I have played that game before,
I
but
think
not
you're probably
on a console.
thinking about Joe and Mac.
No.
Caveman Ninja.
I
This guy
played
has
Joe and Mac.
pink hair.
Yeah, I know who he has. I want to say maybe I played something similar to that.
Yeah, I
it may
don't
not have been
think-
Tomba, but it might have been Joe and Mac.
I don't think Tomba was an arcade game, because it came out in '98, which was the latter days of those type of games in the arcade. There was a sequel, Tomba 2. But the cool thing about Tomba is, like I said, it's a non-linear platformer, so you'll get to the end of a level and you'll kind of have a choice. I can go in this house and my level will rotate 90 degrees. So whereas before I was going from point A to point B, I get in the house and I'm now going from point A over here to point C.
Yeah.
And I really like that. And it's cool. And how the map shows you, it's cool. There's mini subquests, which are awesome. And they're always like, go find 6 dwarves or go kill so many of these things. So really kind of stupid fetch quest stuff. But it's fun because you haven't gotten that in a side scroller before.
Oh, well, yeah, but this was, and you haven't really seen it since. This is a PS1 game that came out, like you said, 98.
Yeah. Somewhere in
and
98.
You don't see that very often in that kind of game.
Yeah. And it's fun, and it's interesting, and it's unique. And the art style is super cute and fun. It's like, I feel like the PlayStation 1 worked best when, a lot like the Wii, when art design focuses on a singular palette. So when you have games like Metal Gear Solid that focuses on a very blue palette, it works really well, it looks really good, as opposed to when you have games like, the original Medal of Honor that focused on a lot of different palettes in its artwork, and the jaggies start creeping in and stuff starts looking not good.
Yeah.
Tomba focuses on a very neon pastel palette. It's very bright
That
and
makes sense.
colorful. It looks like an anime from that time period. It looks like it looks kind of like a post Ava anime. Like, Tenchi Muyo has, characters with bright pink hair. Well,
Yeah.
so is Tomba, and he fits well in that world.
Yeah.
In the story, the pigs invade with their evil magic and make everything kind of this ratty, brownish, purple colors. Look like kind of like fall colors. And the difference being Tomba is bright and colorful, so you have that back and forth.
Yeah. Okay.
And the other game I was playing was Hardcore Uprising, which is a Contra game in everything but name. It is a prequel developed by Arc System Works, who you like, who I like. Arc System Works developer of Guilty Gear. And they basically loved the Sega Genesis version of Contra Hardcore. And this is a prequel to that. And it is crazy. It is a Contra game. Like, even when you first start the game, in the first level, it has the Contra music. That da-na-na-na, da-da-na-na-na, da-da-na-na. I mean, it's not that. I mean, it's done with
similar to that.
huge, like, multi-necked electric guitars, and it's just crazy.
But
it's fun.
That was on the PSN for free, right?
Yes, that is on PSN Plus for free. I'm betting you it's going to be one of the first games taken off the PSN Plus.
I'm sure it will be.
But it was originally released 2 summers ago for $10.
Yeah.
And I think even at $10, that game is a steal. If you like the old style Contra, it's that game. And it's that game in HD. It's how an HD remake should be done. Some of the later bosses, it just devolves into like a bullet hell shooter. And it's super challenging and super fun. And it hits that, what we always call Nintendo hard or NES hard.
Yeah.
Where it's super challenging and you're getting through the game, not because you're running to the next checkpoint,
but because you're actually overcoming what's being thrown at you.
Every time you restart that level, you're getting this much farther, this much farther, this much farther. And that's kind of the risk reward, is that it's like, waves on a beach, slowly building up. You're learning, oh, this guy comes out here. I have to use the machine gun on this guy. I have to use
memorizing the pattern of what happens.
I get the spread shot at this point in the level, and if I can get the spread shot, I can just bolt through it. The other thing that really changes the game that I think a lot of people missed when it first came out and just said it was too hard is there's an arcade mode, which is your normal Contra, tough as nails mode, and there's a rising mode. And the rising mode, every time you play, you get C points, which are called core points, but Contra. And you can trade those in for sustained upgrades. So like you'll trade that in for a, every time you pick up the machine gun power up, instead of it being machine gun level 1, it's machine gun level 2 or level 3.
Yeah. So persistent upgrades through the levels.
Yeah, and you run faster.
Like
and stuff
leveling
like
up your character, basically.
And that type of stuff makes the game easier, makes it more fun, and also contributes to that every time you play the level, you get this much further.
Yeah.
And it's super fun, super challenging. I love it. I've already sunk, it was originally a little downloadable game. I already sunk like 7 or 8 hours into it. I'm sure there's trophies. I haven't earned any yet because I'm sure they're freaking crazy.
Get S rank on this level. Go through this whole level
without
without
that's the other
taking
thing.
a
Like
hit.
at the end of the level, they rank you. You got an A, a B, a C, a D. I haven't gotten an S rank yet because I'm sure it's insane, but there's an S rank. And it's fun, and it encapsulates that retro game return that we're seeing a lot more of now these days.
Yeah.
And I think this is our first main topic for today, is retro games remixed. I think we're seeing a lot of old style mechanics rebuilt for the modern age. There are throwback games like Mega Man 9 and 10, but at the same time, you compare that to a Metal Gear Uprising, where you can play it the old way, or there's this new way that is more, I wouldn't say easier, it's definitely not any easier, but it makes modern allowances for the old game mechanics.
Yeah, and like you said, there's been a lot of remakes of old games. I think Final Fantasy III just got re-released on the iPhone or Android, on the mobile platform.
Yes, and it's going to be re-released on the PSP towards the end of the summer in Japan. There's no American announcement yet, but there should be, because
why not?
If that takes place, you can play all of the Final Fantasy series up to 10 on one platform.
Yeah,
and I really loved what they did with Final Fantasy IV Collection, where they gave it a whole new gloss of paint, and then they added in all the DLC extra stuff. So you had kind of a Criterion Collection DVD or Laserdisc, but it was for a game. And I feel like that needs to be done. not how they celebrated Nintendo celebrated Mario's 20th anniversary, because that was just here's Super Mario All Stars minus Super Mario World on a disc.
Yeah,
I think that if they're going to do that, they need to pay bigger homage to what went before. But at the same time, even in modern games, there is that sly wink to older games. Like I think of the Ratchet and Clank series, and there are the Quirk submissions, which are just side scrollers.
Yeah,
set up like the old Blackthorn or Flashback kind of.
Earthworm Jim-esque.
Yeah, you
game.
get this screen and you got to move through it.
Yeah.
I think of a couple weeks ago, I was in an arcade and we played Pac-Man versus Battle Royale, which is basically Pac-Man Deluxe or whatever it's called, the new Pac-Man,
Yeah,
the Crazy
seen that.
Pac-Man. But it's 4 players,
Yeah.
so you got to kind of fight and get the other guy, and it's who's getting the most pellets, who can survive the longest, who can get the most ghosts, who doesn't get eaten by the other guy, and it's fun. It's a reinvention of that core concept, like the Space Invaders Extreme.
Yeah.
They throw in a new gloss of paint, and how can we make this crazier? Let's put in weapon power-ups that are just nuts. Let's make one boss a giant space invader. And it's that kind of reinvigoration that we're seeing because games as an art form are maturing to the point where the people making games today grew up on
these older
games. Mm-hmm. So they understand, maybe not the people making the big budget, huge titles.
Yeah, you're not going to see a lot of nods to
You might not ever get
Doom in Call of Duty 4.
Yeah, you might not ever get like a twin stick over the head shooter version of Call of Duty, although there is one, which is super cool. Black Ops has a little side mini game in it where it's basically Smash TV.
Yeah, okay.
And it's that type of nod where even you wouldn't think you would get it, you're still getting it. Like the Assassin's Creed game for, I think, the DS is a side scroller, just like the old style. They're like, okay, well, here's the platform limitation. Here's what we would normally want to do. Let's scale it back. Let's put some interesting stuff in there. Mirror's Edge for iPhone, side scroller, totally different than the normal game.
Than Mirror's Edge that came out on the big consoles.
Yeah.
That's cool.
And it's that kind of cool reinvigoration. I mean, there's even a Contra DS that kind of moves the mechanics forward. And that's really cool. That's really exciting. I think we need to encourage that. You need to, if you're into retro gaming and collecting those retro games, you need to go through and find these new versions that have new mechanics and celebrate those.
Yeah. Well, and then, there's also a lot of games that are coming out that they're just retro styled games, but they're completely independent games on their own.
Yeah. Like the Scott Pilgrim game from a few summers ago.
Yeah, the Sky Pilgrim game. I mean, it was a Double Dragon.
Yeah, it was like Turtles in Time, Scott Pilgrimized.
Yeah. But there's also games like, like Cthulhu Saves the World. It's a Final Fantasy-esque
or the latest
RPG game.
Yeah, the latest Penny Arcade RPG.
Yeah, and it's
they
just
actually
like that.
stripped everything back to the 16-bit sprites.
Yeah.
I think it's more attractive to me. I don't think I don't have a platform that it plays on.
Yeah, because it's PC, iOS.
Yeah, I think it's PC and iOS. I think it might also be Xbox Live Indie Games.
Oh, well.
Which is just where things go to die.
Not necessarily.
Microsoft needs to do more stuff to...
They need to do stuff with their IndieCade or whatever they call it.
Yeah, they need to find a way to not advertise Mission Impossible Ghost Protocol on their front page and advertise some of the actual games things.
Well, I think both Sony and Microsoft need to do something about that because, I mean, Steam for the PC has...
Well, but there's a difference.
It has all that kind of stuff.
Steam
they have an indie
only
section.
has games.
Yes.
These other platforms have other things of the platform to advertise. Steam doesn't need to advertise Kinect titles. They don't need to advertise Move titles. They don't need to advertise their music download also. They don't need to advertise their video download store.
But I mean, in the game section of their
store,
there's a
way
need to have an
to do that.
thing.
Yeah, there's a way to appropriately break that stuff down, and I think Microsoft knows the way to do that and has actively decided against it.
Well, you know what?
But we'll get into that.
When they do the next update in like 3 months or whatever it's going to wind up being, you'll probably get something like an indie section of your your 360 dashboard.
Yeah. So what other retro games are the kind of remastering? I mean, even and on top of this, we're talking about HD remakes, and Sony is really good at HD remakes.
Yeah, they do pretty
Like making that, like building it so it's a collection. There's stuff in there. There's new stuff. Like in the Sly Cooper collection, they added in move mini games, which I'm sure, whatever. But you added something new to it.
Yeah.
It's not just up-res texture packs.
Yeah, well, that's kind of what Rayman is. The Rayman HD collection is they just went through and redid a lot of the textures, but it's still like that really 1998, 1999-esque
and it gives
platformer.
But it gives you an option to rediscover that.
Or if you never played it before and it's like $5, why not?
Yeah.
I still, I just have a thing, like, if I think of retro games, I think about what was on my NES. And, my favorite game back then was Legends of Zelda, the original, and 3D Dot Heroes was that.
Yes.
It was that, but it, they couldn't say Zelda.
Like 3D Dot Heroes basically took that Zelda makeup, kept the gameplay exactly the same, and just gave it a 3D sheen.
Well, I mean, there was some, you're talking about how they changed the mechanics of the game. They had sword upgrades, so your sword would fill the screen.
Yes.
Which
was
or
awesome.
almost
Boom!
fill the screen.
Boom!
And,
that needs to be available on the PSN. There's no reason that should not be available on the PSN.
3D Dot Heroes needs to come out on the PSN.
That needs to be a $10 PSN title. I think it would sell gangbusters.
Yeah.
I would probably buy it again.
But yeah, I enjoyed what I played of it. I didn't finish it because I got stuck, and then you showed me how to get unstuck.
Yeah. It's genius. It's awesome.
It's a pretty cool game. And I liked how you can make your own sprite character if you really wanted to spend the time to do it.
I made my sprite character look like the fighter from Final Fantasy 1.
Yeah.
Because I was bored one day and I was like, hey, it's not that hard. Like,
here's
the left view, here's the front view, and
here's the back, and yeah, go for it.
But yeah, so our next topic, I feel like we're dead on this one, right?
Yeah, seems like it.
Next topic is Sony. I feel like, I said it before, I feel like Sony this is their first Xbox. They are figuring out the online space, and since this generation has gone on so long, those little nagging idiosyncrasies have become problems.
Yeah.
Everyone always asks for cross-play, cross-chat, party chat.
Yeah. Yeah, that would be nice.
The PS3 is not built to do it. Like,
it doesn't have the RAM to do it. It's a technical limitation of the hardware.
Yeah, it has. We don't want to sound like it doesn't have the RAM to accomplish that feat. It does, but the problem is how it's designed is when a game starts up, it has access to all the RAM.
Yeah, it doesn't.
Whereas the Xbox 360 partitions an amount of RAM for Xbox Live, concurrent stuff.
Yeah.
Auto syncing achievements and stuff like that. Now, PS3 doesn't do that.
Yeah, you have to.
That's why trophies won't auto sync. That's why you can't just tap the PlayStation button when someone sends you a message and it bring up the message. You need to back out, go into the XMB, because what that does apparently is remove some of the memory usage from the game. That's why a lot of them will auto pause when you do that.
Yeah.
And goes to the XMB, loads it up separately, and it's just like it's not. I don't want to say it's a design fault because obviously it's a game machine. You want all the resources there for it, but it kind of is.
Yeah,
it's a design misstep that has now become a fault.
Well, but it was running on what you would say experimental technology when it first came out. The cell processor that's in it. Yeah, it's performed admirably throughout its lifespan, and some of the rumored leaked specs of the two new systems basically turn them into PCs, like i5-esque processors and so on.
But I'm sure there's.
Well, I mean, there'll be some tweaks. There's some hardware.
Yeah, I'm sure the new systems are going to be, the games are going to look better than what those specs could get on a PC.
Yeah, because they're going to have their own special OSs written for it and whatever. But I don't use a lot of the Xbox Live features. I hardly use my Xbox. But, you're right. When you get a message on the 360, it comes up, and you can look at it without having to back out of your game. It'll come up in the corner or whatever, and you can read it and go, okay, whatever. So whenever you get to a stopping point, you can respond.
Things like updating games. Like, I have PS Plus, so if I go into a game and it says it needs to download an update, and I say, no, don't do that, at 4 o'clock in the morning when my PSN pops on, it'll download that update and install it.
Yeah.
But I do have to wait a full day for that to happen.
That's kind of nice.
Yeah. But at the same time, shouldn't my system go through and scan every game and know that, there's an update. They've just updated this game, so download this update next time I turn on. I mean, it's stuff like that I feel that it's going to work itself out.
Well, and that's the problem I had with Pinball Arcade yesterday.
Yes, this is his horror story of Pinball Arcade. Texting me 8 times in 2 minutes.
So
I am not Sony support.
I bought the DLC, and I couldn't figure out how to make it work. I don't ever buy DLC for games. Just, I'll buy the game on there and I'll play what's there, and I'll either delete it or it'll just sit there and take up space. But for whatever reason, I could not get, the new tables to come up. And I tried downloading it separately.
And your confusion was that the DLC only thing was the same for the PS3
for the Vita and the PS3, but it turns out all you have to do, and it's really dumb that you have to do this, is re-download the original game, and then you download the 100 kilobyte unlock file, and it'll unlock the 2 tables that you purchased, and you can do a trial of all of the tables.
Yes, because basically when it came out, they put out a version of it that just didn't work right with how the download structure of the PSN is made, and they didn't know that then, and it was something they couldn't repatch.
Yeah, and when I downloaded the thing, it was essentially the same game, but it had it was just an updated version of it that it never I never got it patched in, and so I just had to
it just wasn't built. The original game was not built to patch how they needed it to be patched.
To do it, yeah.
And it's not Sony's fault, and it's not necessarily the developer's fault, because that's the type of thing that probably should have come out in QA.
Yeah, they should have figured that out. But at that point, they weren't working
already
on
out.
any DLC.
Like, oops.
Yeah. I mean, they might have been working on
So
DLC.
I think Sony needs to do a better job. I think the onus is on the platform holder to get that information out. Like, the developer tried. I mean, I looked all over the place. The only place you could find instructions to do this was on their Facebook page, the developer's Facebook page. It needs to be more places. I think they need to be able to send you a message on the PlayStation Network. You've downloaded this game. It needs this. It has this problem. You need to re-download it.
Yeah.
And they've done stuff like that in the past for me as a PlayStation Plus member, where you downloaded the demo of this game. Here's a direct link to download the full version of it.
Yeah.
I don't think it would be that hard, but
we don't know the technical side of all that stuff. So
this is once again one of the problems with having these always online systems.
Yeah.
But yeah, so you were upset because Sony's problem again. The PSN
Well, no,
sucks,
it wasn't that. I think
Dave always complains about the PSN downloads really slow, and it does. I do have to say, if you are downloading a new file after the PlayStation Store
update on Thursday or Tuesday,
along with the other 30 million people that are probably also downloading that file, it is slow.
It's not even that. Like, the update or the Vita thing that I downloaded for the DLC, it's 70 megs. It took 30 minutes to download that.
Yeah, that's because you're on wireless.
Yeah, that's the only thing I can come up with.
When the
Wi-Fi
PS3
is not that great.
When the PS3 was made, the Wi-Fi standard was X, and now the Wi-Fi standard is Y. It is much faster.
So I just need to run a cable from my office.
Since
to
we've
my
been
living
here,
room.
so the console generation has been around this long.
Yeah,
we're running into that problem, whereas technology is way outstripped.
Yeah, and the 360, because I have one of the newer slim 360s, the wireless is fine.
Yeah, with wireless in.
So it
has a different
got to
standard.
be just the older technology in the PS3. I'm sure the newer ones probably have some sort of newer.
Yeah, I mean, you're never going to get
wireless.
a fully future-proofed console.
No.
It's just not going to happen. They're not built that way. But there are other problems with the PlayStation that I feel like Sony needs to do a better job speaking to their audience. And if you want to look this stuff up, I don't agree with all of them, but Game Over Greggy over on IGN.com did an article on it.
Yeah. There's a lot of stuff
about stuff like there needs to be a simpler streamline. Like, you need to be able to buy a PlayStation at a store, go home, hook it up, and it needs to go.
Yeah. Well,
and if that's downloading updates in the background until you can bring it up to a spot where you can get online, then it needs to do that. Like you go to the genius idea is you go to a store, you buy your PS3, you buy Uncharted, you go home, and you can play those 2 items.
You could play Uncharted
while it's downloading the firmware update in the background. Because people that aren't on their PlayStations all the time, like I am, it's annoying to download a firmware update.
Yeah, because you'll be sitting there and you're like, all right, well, I got an hour to do whatever. I'm going to sit and play this game that I haven't played
honestly,
in a while.
like that's worth the PlayStation Plus price, is getting it to log in and download
At
that
like 3
firmware
o'clock in the
update.
morning.
Yeah.
And
do that
I've
stuff
seen it doing
automatically.
that too. Like, I'll just come home and it'll be doing something and, my wife's not using it. Mm-hmm. So.
I mean, I think there's a lot of things that I think hopefully the next PlayStation addresses.
Well, let's hope. And we'll probably find out about it sometime in the next year. Hopefully.
Better Facebook integration,
I don't care about the Facebook integration so much.
Well, but you're going to.
No.
Well,
Not really.
if Xbox, we've always said that you don't need to just copy and paste Xbox Live, but if Xbox does this thing at 10% or 100%, Sony needs to do this thing at least at 50.
Yeah.
To be comparable, competitive. And I think they're getting their legs under them still in terms of the online space.
Yeah,
So here it here first. The PlayStation, the PSN for number 4 will be better than the PSN for number 3.
let's hope.
And they better keep PlayStation Plus as it is.
Or
Because with PlayStation Plus as it is, there is no reason. It is astonishing that people pay $60 for Xbox Live. And I know people say, if you pay $60 for Xbox Live, you're not looking around, you're not online, you're a fool. But you know what? People's parents don't do that. The mass market audience for Xbox Live isn't going to hunt and peck and find that $25 a year item. Which even at $25 a year, you're still overpaying for what they give you.
Well, yeah, because you have to pay to play games online. You have to pay to use half the features that your 360 has in it.
Yes. It is a tax.
It's a stupid tax.
I mean, that's the only reason I can see that $100 Xbox with a 2-year live program, even though you end up spending like $700 on the console.
Something like that, yeah.
You do have to buy that stuff anyway if you want to play online.
Yeah.
So it makes that $100 console plus the 2 years or 4 years of online, whatever it is, more comparable instead of the $300 console with that same stuff in it.
Yeah.
They have to pay to unlock.
Yeah, well, we'll have to see how they wind up doing that.
Yes.
And honestly, I hope that the next generation of consoles does get it right with the online.
Yeah. I like how the PlayStation, the cross media bar is set up, where if you load it in, you're on that what's new page. Mm-hmm. It gives you a little bit of everything. It gives you a little bit of video games, a little bit of video, a little bit of this, a little bit of that, a little bit of that. And then if you go to the same icon over on the games section, it's just the game stuff.
Yeah.
On the video section, it's just the video stuff. I think that's cool. I think they did it wrong on the Vita because I don't want to load up a separate app.
Yeah, but the Vita's a handheld. You kind of have to go with what you can do.
Yeah.
But they could have custom built it to do it better.
Yes. They could do things like automatically pushing, if I download Game X and Game X needs firmware Y.
Yeah.
They should both download at the same time.
And I've had that issue with my PSP when I got the Final Fantasy Tactics remake for it,
which is awesome, by the way.
Yeah,
it's well worth
really
$10
or whatever it is you wind up paying for it. I couldn't play it because I had to download a firmware update. Mm-hmm. So it means I had to,
They should both download this. I mean, it's that type of.
Well, no, I purchased it. Like I actually have the UMD of it.
UM what?
UMD.
I don't remember those.
Discs
but it's that type of things that they need to happen concurrently. There's just more ease of use stuff that could go with it.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff that they could look at and improve. I mean, there's always room for
improvement.
And I think somebody's always going to nitpick the crap out of your system. So
like, this is going to be kind of a cop out, but Xbox Live is only better than PlayStation Plus because Microsoft had 2 or 3 years before the 360 launched to work out these growing pains. And yes, I know the PS2 could go online, but it had no unified online presence.
Yeah, well, and you had to buy because the last ones had network cable.
Yeah, but it wasn't like you didn't log into a PSN. It was by developer.
Yeah.
And these are the growing pains that Xbox Live went through on the Xbox.
Yeah.
It's in stark relief because Xbox Live has ended up being so good, even though you pay for it.
Well, yeah. But maybe that's why it's so good, is because you do pay for it. Mm-hmm. If the PSN had been funded like the 360s, like the Xbox Live has been, maybe it would have turned out better. If they had a pay to get online or a PlayStation Plus from the get-go.
Yeah, they should have had a PlayStation Plus from the get-go.
Maybe PlayStation Plus would have wound up being better
funding
now.
So much what the PSN does now.
Yeah, and it's, you've seen the improvements. You've seen, the free games, the avatars, whatever you get for having that monthly subscription. Mm-hmm. But you also see that, you get...
I'm just waiting for Sony's next big firmware update for the PS3. I don't think they're going to get, like, we're not going to get, like, a huge, like, when in-game XMB came out, but there's at least 1 or 2 more in the cards.
Well, yeah, there probably will be.
And I'm waiting for the next Vita update because there's a lot of functionality that the Vita still doesn't do that it should.
Well, yeah.
PlayStation 1 Classics, I'm looking at you.
Well, and don't forget, they just gave you YouTube last week.
Yes, which I've used a lot, actually.
Yeah,
Like,
well, you can use
Game
it...
Center CX, Nine Inch Nails live videos, like, they look awesome on that screen.
Well, yeah, because it's, you know, a little OLED screen, and it's
I
higher res.
I have my big monitor headphones in bed.
Just
You know,
watching-
wife's like just sleeping away.
Yep.
I'm just sitting there watching Game Center CX. Oh, Cacho, you're so funny. You suck at games. So, that's it for today.
If that's what you want.
I think that's it for today. You can get to us at PixelBlips on Twitter, PixelBlips@gmail.com if you want to send us a question directly. We do check the comments on all these things. So, see you next week, and don't forget to spay and neuter your Pokemons.
And have a safe 4th of July, because you can't game without thumbs.
That's true. Very true.